Welcome to Week 10 of the Bill Nees Coaches Show. I'm your host, Chip Hare. With me is Coach Bill Nees. And Coach, we roll right into Week 10. Hard to believe that we are in the last week of the season. Before we talk about the Battle of the Miami, we have to go back and just talk a little bit about Friday night's disappointing game. The Indians fall short 17-14 in what was a strange game in a lot of different ways, but the Jackets get a late field goal. And a 17-14, a 39-yard field goal, doesn't see that a lot in high school football. Yeah. Sealed the fate of the Indians that night.
Yeah, and you know, that's one of the games where you go back and you're immediately looking at the film after the game. Sometimes you don't even want to see it. This is one of those games where we definitely wanted to see that film, and we went back as the coaches and watched it Friday night. Came in Saturday, watched it again, and you know, really felt that there were some things that had been missed in terms of you know, some mental errors on the field, things along those lines that we've got to get a way to get those things corrected. You know, we can't deal with some of the things that probably shouldn't have even had to happen, and you know, you get back in there, and we got to continue to work to try to get better in the second half of some games. You know, it came down to the end with the field goal. And we knew they had a good kicker. We put Noah Lyman in, thinking it might be a little bit more of a low trajectory because of the ball. I thought maybe he could get up and get one of his big, tall hands on it or something. It was not the case. And as a result, then, you know, we've got to sit for a year with that battle helmet down in Sydney.
We talk a little bit about it in to try to kind of put it into words. We don't want to take anything away from Sydney because they're certainly a good team. They're a young team. They're up and coming, and we know that they got a lot of talent. But in a lot of ways, we felt like we really kind of beat ourselves in certain ways. And again, not to take anything away from that, but there were some opportunities that I know we both felt like, hey, we done this, we did this, could have been a different result. I
think so. And, anytime the ball crosses the goal line a couple times and there's still no points registering, those are things that you say, well, and it was a matter just of a couple unnecessary things. And, I think that was the biggest thing. I think also we'd really like to have the possession back, and they did a nice job on the goal line against us. And I really think we'd love to have that possession back and maybe do some things a little bit differently. And that's not the case. You don't get it back. So I think on that particular thing, they did a good job, and a couple other things, I think we could have just saved ourselves a little bit, if we would have been a little bit smarter in some of our decisions.
Well, certainly one of the bright spots of the evening for the Indians that night was we were looking at defensive goal chart. Defense was again stellar 3 weeks in a row where we reached all of our goals. Mm-hmm. The defense really did a nice job.
They did. And anytime the defense does a job like that, our goal basically is this. We usually set the game standards, and we say if we can hold somebody under 2 touchdowns, that you're probably going to win the game. So that's our goal. But, like I tell our guys, there's every once in a while, there's going to be probably one of those 10 games that we're going to have to do something maybe a little bit more. And in this case, for example, we probably could have done a little bit more defensively. And if we would have held that thing to 1, and then that field goal at the end, we would have been all right. And so you always got to keep trying to set that bar a little higher, set the bar a little differently. And although we played well defensively, I thought that there's always room for a little improvement.
Sure. Well, and we'll have that opportunity Friday night as we transition from one rivalry game to arguably maybe even a bigger one, the Battle of the Miami, the oldest rivalry in the state of Ohio. Which is interesting. It is a tied series right now. I believe it's 62 wins for Troy, 62 wins for Piqua, and 6 ties. Mm-hmm. And so amazing, after 130-some years, this is a tiebreaker game.
Yeah, it's great because, for a while there, we were 2 down, and we were able to battle ourselves back, work ourselves back, and now we've got a great opportunity to actually go one up on that series, and I think that's going to be vital. It's a whole situation. There's a lot of other things involved in terms of 11th week playoff, things along those lines. But I think the number one goal, before anything else can happen, before you can even think about that, for us to be able to have an opportunity to put ourselves in that position, especially against a quality team like Troy, is going to be a great opportunity.
They're a much improved team. If you look at their record, you'd say they're 2-7, and boy, Troy's down this year. That's certainly not been the case. You arguably could say they're maybe the two best 2-7 team in Southwest District.
Yeah.
They've been up at halftime or even in the second half on many of those games, and have not been able to hold on, or the other team comes back to win with whatever the case may be. You got a new coach, got a new coaching staff, both head coach and offensive coordinator, former head coach at Tip City. So they do know the game. Obviously, we are going to be in a situation where they know we're coming off a tough loss, and as they are too. But certainly going to be a test in a lot of ways. I
think so, and you know, when I had an opportunity to talk to Matt Birnbacher before he took the job, and he asked me what I thought about it before I knew he was a candidate, and I said one thing. I said, you know, everybody talks about Troy. Well, what's wrong with Troy? Troy's been down. I said, if you play against them, and I've watched now for 4 straight years since they've been the 10th game of the season. For 4 straight years, I've been able to watch, analyze, whatever you might want to call it, all 9 of their games up to us. And Troy is like you said, one of the best 1-9, one of the best 2-7. There's a lot of games where they're close. Now, obviously, when you go play Wayne or something like that, and you send one of the Division II or one of the Division III teams to go play Wayne, that might be a little lopsided. But almost every one of their games, they're in it. And the GWAC North this year is, you can't sit there and say, well, they beat them, so as a result, they should beat them. That formula does not work anywhere on any team. And I think it shows the quality of the GWAC North this year. There's a lot of, I know we've got a lot of young kids that are in our stable going to be playing here for next year. They've got a lot of young people coming back. Sydney certainly has a lot of young people coming back. Vandalia Butler has a good mix. So I think, and I think Greenville's got some young kids coming back. So I think in all cases, the Troy football team is an outstanding football team, and that's what I told Matt. I said, man, they're 1 or 2 touchdowns away from being a 6-4, 7-3, team. Just like if you go back and look at us, and it'd be the same thing. And that's sometimes, and it's not like, hey, let's go back and do this over again, but it's just realistically, sometimes you look at a team and you say, oh, well, they're 4-6, or even in Northmont. When you go back and look at Northmont's got 1 win the whole season, but no one has been able to knock Northmont out. Right. Northmont's been in every one of those games, and every one of those wins that people have picked up against them, they've had to work for. So it's high school football, and it's a weekly shot. It's not. It's really hard unless you're a top echelon team. It's really hard just to sit there and say, okay, well, this is going to happen, because a lot of variables come in, with whether or not it be injury, whether or not it be different types of matchups. Some teams match up better with other teams, and that's just the case.
When we look at Troy, what can we expect? What can our fans expect to see from Troy on Friday night?
Well, the biggest thing when you come into the Troy operation is that their quarterback is the heartbeat of everything. He's got the ball in his hands. He's either throwing it or running it almost 40 times a game, one way or the other. And they got a great stable of 3 receivers that can get the ball down the field. They got a good vertical passing game. They're one of the teams that, like Vandalia Butler, that enjoys throwing the ball down the field. So I think those are the 2 big things that are going to stand out. Great quality running back in between there, and they got 2 all-league, first-team all-league players in their offensive line. So I think right there that's pretty good. Now defensively, they're a mix of a 50, and they reduce down and play some other packages. But you got a guy over there. Matt brought his father over, Charlie, and you're looking at a guy that's probably one of the deans of all coaches around here that knows a lot more football. I mean, the cliche is he's forgot more in a day than everybody knows. Right. Everybody knows in their coaching career. And once you got to deal with Charlie on that side of the ball too, you're not gonna be able to just outsmart and just get a cheap touchdown. You're gonna have to work for what you're doing. And we know that offensively, that we're gonna have to go down there, we're gonna have to take care of our schemes, and we're gonna have to work for what we get.
We should note also, again, I think we're running in the 6th straight year where the Great American Rivalry Series, which is an organization out of Kentucky, highlights the top rivalries across the United States. They have come back yet for another year to highlight this game, and I should note that they don't always come back to all the other games. What they've told us is it's a special game. It's special to each school. It's special to the community. And obviously, when you've played over 130 years and you've got a tied series at 60, 62, 62, and 6, obviously they see something that's special about it too.
Yeah, it is. I think both communities will agree it's special. It's a great time of the year. I really enjoy the fact that it's the 10th game of the season. The only thing that I did realize is you tend to stockpile a couple more films over the course of the year, and by the time you get down to here, you're really getting a little bleary-eyed over this whole deal, watching the film. So you got to make sure that you're getting your prep down, but you also have to make sure you get a little bit of rest every now and then so you're ready to go for Friday.
Let's talk a little bit about Week 11. As you mentioned, we took a step back with the loss last week. We were at 6. We are now in the 10th position. However, in that 10th position, they take the top 8. The position 6 and the position 10. The points are really close and tight, and with a win over the Trojans on Friday night, and certainly with some help from some other people, which are very probable, the Indians have a good chance of potentially getting in.
Yeah, the way it looks right now, mathematically, there's 2 spots open, and there's 5 teams that are competing for those 2 spots, us being one of those teams. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to be able to, have a good game ourselves and be able to beat Troy. And we've got to take care of our rivalry, and then we also have to have 3 other schools, come up with a victory against the 3 of the 4 teams that we're competing against for those spots. And the good news is we've been in this situation a couple times before, and it was always one of those ones where it's got to be a major upset in order for this to happen. And I think all these games are relatively close games, are going to be doable games, and the opponents that they play all have to win also to make the playoffs. So each one of these games is pretty meaningful. So we just got to keep preparing. We talk about that a little bit, but the biggest thing we got to do is prepare, take care of this thing first, and then we'll see what happens.
Well, certainly Piqua will go into Friday night at Troy, looking to take care of business and get up 1 spot. And I should mention in this is interesting as I was looking at the numbers. When you look at the rivalry, it has been a game of runs by both teams through the years. And what I mean by that is a team might win 2 or 3, and the other team will win 2 or 3, or maybe even 4. This year, we've won 3 straight coming into this one. I know Alex Nees, your son, was in my office earlier today, and we were talking about how the success that particular group has had against Troy, and he said he's not sure the last time Piqua has won 4 against Troy. So again, the swings, it's not been 1 and 1 and 1 and 1 all the way through. It's been a game of runs.
Yeah, and we went through a couple periods where it popcorn back and forth. Boom, 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 boom. But normally you get on a little bit of a run. There's each school kind of has, and high schools have a tendency to do this. You have a group of people come. There's very rarely do you have a class in football that's complete, meaning you've got all the offensive linemen you need, you've got all the skill people you need, you got a quarterback, you got running backs, you got everything in place. Usually it's a combination of those 3. Around here it's always been something like that where we have maybe 2 or 3 sophomores that play, and then there's probably 60% of juniors, and then the rest it's a senior-laden team. That's usually how it operates. And so that 3-year span, will then go, and those sophomores will suck up that freshman class, and so forth and so on. So you get a little bit of a streak going, so to speak. So I think that's kind of what happened, because I know over there it's happened. Before they got a couple good classes and they rolled in.
Before we let you go, I want to ask you a little bit about your son Al. He is going to be the senior feature that we talk about today. Al obviously is pretty special to you because he's your son, but he's also been special to this team. He's had a very good year. He's had a very good career. Talk a little bit about not just your relationship so much, but also what he's meant to this football program.
Well, I think he's one of the leaders of the football team. I think he's a guy that the kids listen to. I think he leads a lot of people lead by example, and they're a little quiet. I think he's vocal. He gets out. He tells people what's on his mind, and he's always been like that. And I think it's worked, in his favor quite a bit in terms of really helping us. I think I really appreciate the fact that his leadership has come into play on a number of times where we may be down, and you need those guys. Those are the guys you need. It's one of the sayings I use around here is it's easier to corral a wild horse than to breathe life into a dead one. And I think, he's one of those guys where, sometimes, you got to tell him to almost calm down a little bit, and take it easy. But I've never had to tell him, hey, let's get fired up here, because I think he always brings that to the table.
Yeah, certainly Al has been a fixture of the football program for as many years as I can remember. In fact, I can remember when you guys made a run to the state championship. He was being interviewed oftentimes by the television stations because he kind of had that look to him. And I know that Friday night, he's told me personally what Friday night means to him, and as obvious, he's been around what that game means a lot. So it runs in the genes.
I think anybody that hangs around with us knows that it means a huge amount to us, and so they'll be ready to go.
Well, we know that will be the case, and we are going to come to our second part of the show when we talk to Al and we get inside the mind of a coach's son and what's it really like to live with this guy. We'll be right back. Welcome to the second half of the Bill Nees Coaches Show. With us this week is senior Al Nees, and Al, welcome to your dad's show.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Al, we hear week 10, and we're obviously moving into what is the probably biggest game of the year, because it's always the big game on the schedule, week 10 with Troy. What does this game mean to you as a senior? And obviously you've been around the rivalry for many years, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But just for you as a senior, what does this game mean to you?
It means a lot because, it's the last one. There's no more, if we lose, we don't have next year. I mean, if I lose to these guys, this is the last time, and I got to hear for the rest of my life. It's one of those things, if you lose, you'll hear about it for the rest of your life. And I've experienced that with many other guys, such as my brother, who never beat them and lost his senior year and still hears it to this day.
Hey, you were in my office today. It was an interesting statistic that you gave me. Since your junior high, 7th and 8th grade, and of course as a freshman, sophomore, and last year, you have been, in the senior class, has been very successful against Troy, not losing at all.
Yes, we have never lost against the Troy Trojans. And that reign has gone on since our 7th grade year.
Is that pressure for you, or is that something you think about, or is that just kind of something that's in the back of your head as a statistic on the wall?
Oh, definitely. And he knows it, Dad knows it, and a lot of the seniors know it, that we have a great success against these guys, and it feels good because we know who these guys are. We've been playing with them since 7th grade, and so I think we have a little more outside, or I don't know necessarily how to say that, but we know them very well on what to expect. So mostly everybody knows it, and with the expectations on it.
Sure, big expectations, and I certainly know that we'll be ready to play on Friday night. And I'm going to transition to a word you just said in your last answer, which was dad. Not coach, it's dad. And those conversations that we've always had, it's not been coach, it's always dad. What's it like to be having dad as your coach?
Definitely a lot of pressure. When you're on the field, it puts more. It's different if you're a kid if you're a coach's son that doesn't play a lot, you maybe play your senior year, just that, maybe a little bit your junior year. But starting as a sophomore, that was probably the most pressurous year I've ever had of football in my life. Yeah. That year was probably the toughest emotionally and mentally I've ever been through, and he knew it, I knew it, my mother knew it, and we got through it. It was a rough road, but a lot of people have expectations for you, and if you're on the field, you're going to get and if you make one mistake, no matter what you are, you're going to get definitely criticized for being the coach's kid.
Well, I think you've handled it very well, and just in the 3 years that I've been around you here with the program, of course I was here in that sophomore year. I knew that was a challenging year. Not only did you get through it, but I think you got through it with flying colors. You had a successful run back there. You learned obviously a lot, transitioned into a wonderful junior year, and here we are senior year, and you've had a great senior year. We can talk about countless plays that you've had that's been big. Here you are on the recruiting trail right now. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. But you've got some schools that obviously see that you have some skills and has nothing to do with your dad. It has everything to do with you. And I think that sometimes you get lost being, Coach's son and not Al Nees. Does that sometimes hit you?
Yeah, that's kind of my main thing is when I talk to recruiters and stuff like that is I want to make sure that they're doing it for the way that I play, not something that he is, like they're like, okay, maybe this is Nees' kid and all this stuff. I want it to be how I play, and I make sure I tell them that. And it also does help somewhat that I am a coach's son because they know that I can learn easily, that I can grasp things better than anybody else really, because I'm around it a lot.
Well, we're going to bring Coach in, your dad, here in just a little bit, but I wanted to talk to you without him just to get you your time, because I think so many times you get put together as a package together, and I know that's something you're very proud of him, but sometimes you don't get that moment to yourself. But I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that you've been around the program since you've been in diapers.
Came out of the womb.
Yeah. And I can remember pictures even way before when I just moved to town, and there were pictures of you as a child around being held by players before you could even walk. I remember even in the state championship year run in 2006, there was a picture of you being interviewed by the TV camera. So you've always kind of been around that spotlight. As now as a senior, what does that mean for you? Because most of these kids are graduating because they've been around the program for 3 years, maybe 4 years. You've been around this program for what? You're 18?
Yeah.
You're 18 years. So I mean, you're not just graduating from a high school. This is a little bit bigger than that.
Yeah. It's definitely hitting me finally. It didn't really hit me until maybe last week, midway through the week, but it definitely hit me that this is going to be like the last time. I'll come back and stuff like that, but this will be the last summer I fully spend here with these guys. I mean, there's nothing better than this here. This is the best football, no matter what the record shows. This is the best football in the state of Ohio, right here in Piqua. You can't get anything better. Everybody just loves it. I mean, no matter what your record is, the fans are out there, everything. It means so much that, this is just a home to me. I mean, not even a second home. It's a home to me. I mean, I've stayed the night here with my dad I don't know how many times, and him ignoring calls from my mom because she wanted me to come home, and I kept telling him I didn't want to come home, so we stayed here. I mean, I remember state night, it was snowing, about 2 inches of snow, and me and him were in there drawing up that fake punt that he ran that game to lock in the state championship.
Home. And this locker room to you is home. This facility has been home. And Piqua has been home. And Al, we thank you for all you've given to Piqua. It's been a joy to watch you. It's been a joy to watch you grow. And you're Al Nees, not Coach's son today.
Thank you.
We are going to bring Coach in, though, so we will get an interview of the three of them together so you can hear from themselves what it's like to be coach and son in probably what is one of the most storied coaching father-son positions certainly in the state of Ohio. So be right back. We will be back with Coach Nees and Al Nees. Welcome to part 3 of the Coach Bill Nees Show. With me is the father-son combination of Al Nees and Coach Bill Nees. And Coach, we were just talking a little earlier with Al and what it meant to be a Piqua Indian. And to summarize it, most of all the seniors graduate from playing 3 years, 4 years from here. Al has been here since he's come out of the womb for 18 years, so it's a little bit more storied here as he's been through all the wars, and he was even giving stories late at night when he wanted to stay the night with you and drawing up plays and watching film. So this is a little bit more special for Al, and I'm certainly sure for you as well.
It is. It's been a fun run, and hopefully we can continue it on. It's been great, and he's been around here quite a bit. I know there's a couple times that he forgot to tell you that he actually has played JV football for us a little bit also. When he was in 4th grade, he dressed a couple games and snuck on the bus. And unbeknownst to me, apparently I was supposed to be babysitting him here at the stadium, and so I kind of lost track of him on a road trip. But yeah, he's been a great player for us, and I've really enjoyed coaching him.
We were talking I said, what's it like to not just be Al, but you're being Coach's son? And one of the things that he had mentioned is that it's just, there's the pressure. And he talked about the pressure of his sophomore year having to start, and people always second guessing, and sometimes it's, you know, as being a coach's son, there is that spotlight, and he's handled it very well.
I think he has. I think he's handled it well, and I think he's proven, you know, that he does belong, and you know, he has the ability to play, you know, at this level, and hopefully he'll continue on in college.
Let's talk about that, Al. We've talked a little bit in the previous segment about there are other schools out there that are interested in you, not just because you're Coach Nees' son, but they're interested in you playing because of what you've done on the field. What schools right now have you been looking at and talking to at this point?
It's kind of quiet right now during the season. They usually don't come around much because they're in their own season. But right now I have standing offers from Dayton, Butler, and Youngstown State.
Well, it should be noted also your brother Trav plays for the Flyers, and the Flyers are having an outstanding season. He's been having a very good year. Does that have any kind of an influence on you as a brother to want to play with him, or do you have a tendency to, hey, I want to be my own guy and go to another program? Yeah,
it's definitely got a lot. You know, last week they had just played Butler, who is their rival. So it was kind of funny because those are my two first offers. And right as soon as the game was over, he looked at me and he said, "I will make sure that you do not go to Butler." And it's, you know, and it'd be kind of fun to play with him, but then again, it'd be kind of fun to line up against him. It's one of those things it's just gonna have to come down to the last thing. It'll probably come down to playing with him because I've never got to play with him.
Dad, what does that mean for you to be able to, you know, see, obviously you're watching Trav play at a college level. I'm sure obviously you're very proud. The fact that you might have two sons playing, that you will have two sons playing at the same time, not know where they're going to be, that's got to make you feel really good as a father.
Oh, it is. It's fun. It's very rewarding to be able to, you know, see everybody at the same time. You know, and we've also got to make sure that we're taking care of business here in the University of Piqua also. So I think all three of those are important for us. And you know, well, he'll when it comes down to it, he'll make a good choice. And I don't think you can go wrong with some of the choices he has right now. And you know, we'll support it everywhere we can. I know, you know, at the beginning maybe when they're not playing as much, because you know in college it's kind of hard to get there and play right away. It's good to have the internet out there, and virtually every game that's being played on a Saturday can be found somewhere. Right. You know, on the internet, or ESPN3 is just amazing of the games they carry on a Saturday. So I think, you know, we're in a good spot right now, and hopefully, you know, he'll have a little bit more time his senior year. We'd like to extend some more games, and you know, we'll see what happens.
Well, there was one picture in your office, and I think we even used it in the program, the first program of the season, where we featured an article on the two of you, where you were on your knees mocking your dad, and I believe it's at Troy, in what was a stellar game and an outstanding game. Ironic, here we are, week 10, getting into going. I think it was at Troy, and now we're going to Troy on Friday. An opportunity to not only take care of business, but I guess take care of the sweep that we talked about, right, Al?
Yeah, you know, it's amazing how I was dressing up just like him and standing on the sidelines, walking through warm-ups just like how he does on the steady pace and everything, to being told to back up because I was too close to the field just like he did. But it's amazing now that I'm actually out on the field and getting coached by him now and having to listen to him. So it's big implications on this game, definitely.
We certainly wish you well Friday night, and we certainly wish you well as you go to the next phase, and we're hoping, with crossing our fingers, maybe there'll be a week 11.
Hopefully. Should
be noted, though, that, you know, we've talked about Trav and we've talked about Al. There is the sister in the family. Maybe she'll be putting the shoulder pads on, and then maybe she wants part of the football action too.
Maybe. We've been trying.
I am sure. Well, we are going to wrap up week 10 here of the Bill Nees Coaches Show. As a reminder, the game this Friday night is at Troy at Memorial Stadium with a 7 o'clock kickoff between the Trojans and the Indians, the Battle of the Miami. We will see you Friday night, 7 o'clock. Thank you so much for joining the Bill Nees Coaches Show.